Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 11 of Nutanix Weekly. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. It's my third podcast of the day, so I keep just rolling through the hits, and then I'm on vacation for 4 days. So it's kind of a Monday, and it's also kind of a Friday. Harvey Green, how's it going?
I am doing pretty well, considering that the kids are home on spring break.
So have they been going to school the last month or two? They have, haven't they?
They have, yes.
Okay. Well, welcome back to the old new normal, I guess, maybe.
Right.
I'll know if one comes charging through the door, I'll mute you or something.
I hope that doesn't happen. We've had this conversation.
If the door's locked, it won't happen.
Well, then they'll just bang and it'll be worse.
Yeah. We also have our co-host, Jirah Cox, on. Jirah, how's it going?
Happy Monday. Happy Friday.
Are you spring breaking it, or are you just working a normal week?
We homeschool. So we did a spring break a couple weeks back. So we're working through this week.
Yeah. My kids have all been in school now for, well, what seems like 20 years. It's really only 18, 19 years. Well, almost 20 years.
That's really close. Yeah.
Yeah. Stop and think about it. I long for the days in the future and in the past when I could go on vacation outside of the school calendar, because I know where I'm getting ready to go to. There's going to be just this mass amount of people that are all there waiting on me. And every place I go, there's going to be a line. I want to go to the beach in September. I want to go to the beach in April or May again, where I don't have to worry about the school calendar. I'm looking forward to vacationing hybrid at some point.
I bet.
We're Disney folks, and we have a very, at this point, pent up demand to do a Disney trip, but it's like probably us and everyone in the Northern Hemisphere at this point.
Yeah, I believe you're going to find a crowd when you get there.
Yeah.
Well, guys, our topic for today, and I've lost my link here. Let's get to it. How to ransom proof your backups. Is this a Nutanix centric conversation, or is this just in general, Jirah?
Bit of both.
Okay.
Bit of both. The Nutanix approach to what everyone should be doing in some way, shape, or form, probably.
Yeah. And we talk to people all the time that have gotten the ransomware thing attacked. And I mean, I think we're up to maybe 2 to 4 customers a month that we run into that have run into this scenario and just weren't prepared for it. Let's kick this off by talking about the intro here. What's Gartner and the world saying about this situation that we're in?
Well, matching like what you guys are mentioning, frequency is only kind of going up, right? It's still happening. I had a customer ask me a few weeks ago, like, "Oh, ransomware, is that still a thing?" And I'm like, it took me back. He asked with such conviction, like,
right,
that's still a thing. And like floppy drives, are those still a thing? And I was like, yes, it's absolutely still a thing. I'm glad you're lucky to be missing all of the attacks, but they're absolutely out there and really escalating.
It's more of a thing now than it's ever been.
Now,
yeah, I think you don't have to go back very far in like national headlines to find major companies affected by ransomware outages.
Was this person in denial? Was this person ignorant, or was this person just so arrogant that they acted like it couldn't happen to them?
Maybe he didn't know. Maybe other people in his organization, right? The file administrators, backup administrators, email administrators were doing all of the right things behind the scenes, of course, without pomp and fanfare, typical IT stuff, and he just didn't realize how protected he was.
Yeah, and let's face it. I mean, the bad guys are just going to evolve, right? No matter what we do, we got to do the right things,
right?
We got to deliver our workloads. We got to protect our defenses. We got to make the proper backups, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But it's not going to be if, it's when, and they will just continue to evolve and find the next thing to go after us to try to make money off of doing bad things with our data and our systems.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about this first section here. It talks about defense in depth. What is that?
So, and I love the way it even opens about, disclaiming like no magic bullet, because no silver bullet, because it's not just one thing, right? It's a whole slew of things you need to be doing as an administrator to protect against this and put up all of the rings of defense that you can. It's not one magic wall of defense. It's 15, right? So that's where the defense in depth comes from. That if people can get past one ring of defense, can you step another one that they can't get past that might slow them down or trip them up?
And so it's kind of like a military battle, right? You got your center, you got your flanks, you got to be prepared for what's coming from behind. It's not just one aspect, one attack vector that is the only one that matters.
Yeah, absolutely true.
So Harvey, are you we talked about it a little bit coming into the podcast. Are you seeing that customers are aware that they need to have multiple layers of defense and multiple angles of defense, or they think they've got that one magic bullet? What do you see in talking to people?
I see the full spectrum. I mean, I see people who are taking this very seriously and actually, spending time and money on planning for the secure environment that they want and that they need. And I see people totally on the other side of the spectrum where if we get hit, then this will be great. We'll just go do our backups, and not realizing that your backups can be encrypted just as quickly as your primary data. So I definitely see the full spectrum for sure.
So let's walk through the aspects of the blog here. And the first section says prevent, and it starts off by talking about data fabric best practices. You guys want to walk us through these? The first one talks about physical separation and segmentation.
Yeah, so just kind of going through and hitting on that first point, it's funny. It's almost exactly what I just described, right? You want to make sure that you've got some physical separation between what you have as your primary production data and what you have for your backups. And the reason why is for that very purpose that we just talked about, is if everything is connected, then that's great for while you're doing things and while you're setting it up. But when you get attacked by ransomware, if everything is connected, that's the worst thing for you. Everything is connected. So everything is going to get that same distribution of payload, and then therefore you have the same symptoms everywhere of encrypted files.
It's kind of like social distancing.
It is.
Well, and specifically, like, your backup server is not something that everyone needs to be able to get to, right? Like,
correct.
It lives in the data center. You guys have a real practice around end user computing, right? Which puts users into the data center specifically. And I'm sure you guys have a long list of stories, right, of infections that can happen inside of AUC space, because ransomware runs where users run. Right. So basically, we're marching towards a design where the user VLANs in a data center are practically public, right, and almost need like a zero trust type of approach. Like, that's they're crazy, untrusted and potentially infected every minute of every day. Don't let your backup server be where they can get to it, right? There's just no positive outcome there.
Right.
Yeah, there's really no reason why a user's desktop should have access to your backup servers, and there's really no reason why they should have any more access to a file server than they need.
Yeah.
Agreed 100%. I mean, back in the old days of IT, you would back up everything to tape and then take the tape off site. And you do kind of the same thing now, just not backing it up to tape, but you still need to have copies off site so that you're not, completely connected when everything comes through.
Totally. Well, and you're teeing off our second point of, like, of course, applying 3-2-1 backup technology, backup methodologies, which I think to bring it into 2021 is not 3 copies, 2 media, and 1 off site. It's now 3 copies. I'm going to say 2 blast radiuses and 1 off site, right? Because disk to disk backups are so prevalent. We're not really changing media. We're just changing blast radiuses, right? Like, so not 3 copies on 1 cluster. That's right. That'd be invalid.
Oh, I got to share with you guys something totally unrelated. I just did a podcast with one vendor wearing the other vendor's shirt today, and I just looked down at my chest and realized I had done that. What an idiot. All right, so I do want to go back to the top bullet there about physical separation. Guys, in my mind, taking a thin client operating system, connecting it to a isolated virtual desktop that's either in just with other virtual or maybe in its own little VLAN by itself, I think that is and has been, in my mind, a great way to segment your networks and your workloads for a long time, versus just kind of segmenting off the the endpoint VLAN from everything else. That creates multiple layers it would take to get past those layers in order to get to the stuff that the bad guys are really after.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the more that you can kind of consolidate and, put up the force fields and shields up against your data center, then that's going to help you out a lot. And not having your data be so distributed among endpoints is also a good thing for you. And then continuing down the path that we're talking, making sure that you not only have your data center protected, but that you have the data from your data center protected in a separate way as well.
Yeah, definitely. In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. Right? Because end users use thin clients to connect to often a real computer, right, and do real computer things.
Right.
But depending on what you're trying to prevent, like if you're not going to pass through like virtual USB ports, then now thumb drive attacks are massively, massively mitigated in your environment.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a business reason to enable them, don't enable them.
Correct.
Are back down to the port level.
So let's move the bullet two, which you guys covered to some degree, but let's hit it hard. Harvey, I had flashbacks to the tape backups and, one set on site, one set off site. How bad a job I probably did back in the day. But this talks about the 3-2-1 methodology, which is 3 copies of your data, 2 on separate media, and 1 completely off premises. I mean, that old school thinking is done differently these days, but it still applies, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it still applies. I mean, before you were trying to mitigate against physical disasters, where you're, trying to, the data center way back then was, somebody's coat closet or, an old office of somebody's in a lot of cases. So you were protecting against having issues within that building that you were holding everything in. And now, with everything being virtual, people kind of think that, oh, well, I don't have to protect against the building. And you still kind of do, because your data still resides in, wherever you have that hardware stored, whether that's private cloud, public cloud, it is still all on physical hardware. But from the same kind of virtual type of thinking, when you have connected pieces to your network, that whole network connectivity can serve as a virtual location. And so you're still protecting against things that happen to that virtual location.
Right.
Yeah. I like Harvey's emphasis on thinking and like thinking through like when would I need this and what can get to this and what can affect this. Because I really lump a lot of this in with good quality business continuity, disaster recovery planning, the Achilles heel of which is always failure of imagination, right? If you,
Yes.
where you have to sit down and put your hat on and think about how would I attack this, or what are the flaws in this, or what are the weak places in this? What are the unintended interactions between parts of the system? It's always a failure of imagination, right? So yeah, I definitely agree with the whole, how you think about it really, really matters.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the questions that I always ask in going through, type of backup and disaster recovery planning exercises is, where is your data and what would you like to protect against? Because, to your point, failure of imagination is definitely a good thing there. But, you also want to know, from the customer's perspective, what they want to protect against so that you can, not only have that in your plan, but have the rest of everything else from a best practices standpoint that you want there as well. But, any customer or any good administrator knows where the skeletons are buried, right? He knows who's coming for him or how they're coming for him or her. So just making sure that you're protecting against what they already know, along with what you don't know.
So guys, let's move to the third bullet, hyperconverged infrastructure powered data protection platform. So obviously Nutanix knows this is a problem. You guys have brought in Nutanix Mine to manage the data backup and recovery. The platform leverages a hardening, like a STIG, hardening the AOS, which is the operating system that Nutanix has for the storage piece of the solution, and probably just as importantly, the Acropolis hypervisor hardening as well. Jirah, what's this about?
Yeah, so this is, it's not even all that new for us anymore. Mine's actually got a few evolutions along the way. But mine in general, right, is giving customers that in the same cabinet, in the same data center kind of data bunker experience, right? Of this is my Nutanix for desktops or Nutanix for servers, and that is my Nutanix for backup target, right? And you can also use it to even recover VMs, right? Depending on your sizing and so forth. You can bring up critical VMs as well, because you can design it as a regular Nutanix cluster. So it's still HCI, there's still compute, memory, and storage going on in there, but we can tailor it for what you want to use it for targeting as the backup actual primary storage.
And then you might as well hit the next bullet. It talks about making the storage immutable, so that like worms and viruses can't impact the storage and manipulate it to continue to extend itself.
And this is where I feel like the value really increases for customers, is that it's not just, yes, you can now use Nutanix for storage, but why would you want to do that for backup? Because when you can mark it as immutable, when you can mark it as worm, right? Write once, read many. That is really, really cutting ransomware off at the knees, right? Now we're answering the question of why would I want to do this and how does it keep me safer? Your ransomware you could literally give it your admin password to Prism for the entire cluster, and it still can't go in there and delete those backups or change them in any way.
Right.
That's huge.
Yeah. Nutanix support can't help you delete these snapshots. They are absolutely immutable. Short of like physically destroying the cluster, those backups are going nowhere.
Yeah. Well, and then that brings us to the next, and that's the idea of production read-only snapshots being just kind of a foolproof way of having an ability to get your environment back to a recovery point, recovery time objective that really doesn't care about the ransomware attack.
Right, and that's the other end of the flow, right? We know that we have to get data onto whatever our storage is going to be, whatever that target is going to be, but where does that come from? So when those VMs are coming from a Nutanix cluster, the advantage there is that when you're taking snapshots powered by the Nutanix AOS storage platform, which applies to AHV or ESXi, when you're taking those AOS powered snapshots, those snapshots occur much faster. They commit without VM stun, and I can keep them around for longer. I can replicate them if I want to for like DR. They're not traditional, heavy management VM snapshots where I have to take them and then commit them real fast. I don't want to have a lot of them around because they slow my VMs down. Our snapshots are different. So using those snapshots as my source to get onto the objects cluster, the mine cluster, mine is powered by objects, is what also lets me take those snapshots more frequently, right? Because a lot of our applications these days can even have like a 15-minute RPO. So we might be snapping that VM every 15 minutes. When I can take those snapshots faster, ship the data off, and then get rid of them faster, that's even more painless for me.
Yeah, those 2 points to me, they answer one of the biggest questions that people have after they are, victim to a ransomware attack or a virus attack or any kind of security incident. One of the first questions that you'll have as a person being charged to make things right afterwards is, what can I trust? And having these immutable backups and having these backups that, from the very beginning that nothing can change them, nothing can write to them, that is automatically, I can trust this. And so I can restore from this. A lot of times we have people who go and, just start restoring backups, not actually taking stock of what's there and what's been changed and things like that. And, they either make things worse or they just start a second outbreak. And this is a very good way to make sure that you've got a secure set of files that you can start restoring and start working your way back to getting where you should be when you have an incident.
That's a fantastic point that I even missed there, that these snapshots, if I was coaching a customer on how to use these the right way, we'd even want to look at how do I keep these snapshots around on the production storage and retain them for a useful period, let's say. Maybe I keep the last 24 hourlies.
Right.
And when I hear about an outbreak reported to me as the admin, I don't know exactly how long ago it was. Maybe it was 5-ish hours ago, but I can go power on snapshots from 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 hours ago, throw all those VMs in a bubble network to where they can't spread if they are infected. Find which of those points in the chain was my last usable, and guess what? It's already powered on. It's already running, right? I can power on Nutanix snapshots as usable VMs in quite literally seconds. So that saves me from even having to bring snapshot data back from a storage target, right? So I can keep recent stuff on the cluster ready to rock at full production speed and still have secure worm backups on another cluster as well.
Absolutely. That's a great point.
So Jirah, how would you do that if you're doing, in the case of desktops, physical desktops, you wouldn't be able to do that. It's another plug for why you should virtualize your desktop so you can put them in that bubble and see what happens when you isolate them.
Yeah, physical desktops, you're what? I mean, hop on the golf cart and go to the warehouse, right? I mean, that is the opposite of rapid recovery.
Yeah. All right, still along the line.
Even the operational, like, how do I even like slick that and reimage it is even more operational overhead, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah. And we see people having to do that all the time.
Yeah.
Even those that have bought into desktop virtualization, they never got all their users done. Maybe they're 20% virtualized. The 80% they're not virtualized. They just have to wipe and start over. All right. Day-to-day management best practice. We're still talking about prevention. So the first one says, do not use default passwords. Adhere to some type of strong password policy, which, by the way, for my sysadmins out there, replacing the A with an @ doesn't necessarily fix a whole lot. So using better passwords than that and using possibly passphrases is always my recommendation. Let me just run through these. Not using default passwords, using multi-factor everywhere you possibly can, using network segmentation, which we hit on a little bit earlier, restrict access based on role and user identity. Part of that, guys, is just flat out using that Windows firewall. Don't turn that thing off. I don't see it as much as I used to, but it used to be everybody just turned it off, and the whole point was to protect you against your frenemies on the same network. Do not use Active Directory integration, but use local credentials for backup, so AD attacks do not impact your backup. That's an interesting.
That's a great point. Yeah,
I remember where that came from, right? And that one's gonna have to be tailored to each customer, right? Because when you say don't use AD, then you're having a real big operational impact. Especially around other stuff like use multi-factor authentication and strong passwords. That one came, I think, I can probably remember the exact breach was from an AD 0 day that got released. I want to say it was last fall. So for sure, weigh your options there, and maybe AD shouldn't be blindly trusted, right? Or maybe you need to make sure you have another way into a system other than AD credentials, right? Have that break glass password.
Make sure you definitely have a local way to get in case AD is not there, right? You get attacked and you have an incident, you can't depend on other services to be up. I mean, part of what you're going to back up is your domain controllers. And if your domain controllers fail and the only way you can get to it is by backup, and oh wait, the only way I can get into that is AD, you might as well not have a backup.
but yet apply all of these, right? That local backup password to one cluster shouldn't match another cluster.
Correct. Correct. 100%.
Yeah. Security can be a pain, but worth it.
Yes.
All right. So the next section talks about to look out after your backups. They can be your friend. Put in a regular practice backup schedules and perform periodic reviews. Test your restores. That's kind of important. Keep backups of known infective data sets for future analysis and detection. That last one's one I'm certain I never did. Any thoughts on this set of recommendations?
The middle one especially, right? Test your restores periodically and make sure that you're, quote, meeting SLA. Can you get your stuff back online fast enough? I'll put myself at the front of the line there. I'm not sure I've ever worked in a shop when I was tasked as an admin where we were regularly trying to get our backups powered on in a fast method of like, can we meet our SLAs or, just minimize the pain when we have to do this. And that's a great recommendation to say, like, put on the calendar once a quarter, right? Go pick 3 VMs and say, how fast can you get these back online?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't think that happens enough. And I have a lot of conversations with a lot of customers who say, oh yeah, we've done this and we have a DR. And I'm like, okay, great. When's the last time that you verified your DR? And we're like, no, we don't test it. It's just there if we need it. And it's like, well, not really. You don't know that it's there.
When's the last time you practiced your DR and you had users log on afterwards to see if it really worked?
Right.
Oh yeah. I mean, if the full pie is all users, all customers, and then the pie slice is customers that do a DR test, And then a smaller slice is customers that we think do a good DR test to our satisfaction, right? Us on the call here. And then an even smaller slice, people that do like good regular backup tests. So we're into infinitesimally small groups of customers here. But ideally, it's easy for us to say. It's harder to put man hours against, but everybody should be doing this.
Yeah, no, I agree. One of the strategies that I've seen that I thought was really good was a customer who they had DR, they had production, and every 6 months they'd flop to the other. So they'd run 6 months in DR, run 6 months in production, and that was just their way of making sure that they could do what they needed to do at all times.
The only thing I've heard better than that was doing it monthly, right? The more frequently you move, because you're really not paying more to do that. The more frequently you move, the more motivated you are to script it all. The more chances you are to make you catch gaps in your documentation faster.
You're exactly right.
And the more opportunities you have to get like that newest, greenest, most junior guy on the team, hand in the book and say, go execute this month's failover. And boy, you're going to have a great system if you do that.
Absolutely.
So the next section here talks about detection, leveraging data protection tools to perform anomaly detection, periodic restore of workloads in secure environments. Jirah mentioned that bubble a while ago. Use up-to-date security tools. Nothing like getting your security tools compromised to give you a bad sense of how your environment's doing. And then log scanning for unauthorized attempts. That's a big one, right? There's just so many unauthorized attempts, especially for internet-facing stuff that you just drowned. We're working with a company called XenTegra to help our customers just outsource some of that, because it's a full-time job, and for multiple people, really, if you have a decent-sized environment.
Yeah, is there anything in your environment right now that would tell you if someone's trying to log in with the wrong password until a user gets disabled, and maybe reports it?
Right. And you can't just depend on that, because of course, as Andy talked about before, the bad actors, they will eventually get better, right?
Yep.
Eventually what will end up happening is you get attacked by something that doesn't continue to hit you with a bad password every couple of seconds. It'll be just something that every once in a while, it just tries to log in. If it doesn't get in, it waits. There's another successful authentication by your user that starts to count over, and it just waits and tries again. And, it takes longer, but they get more chances. And, that's more chances for you to have a security event.
Yeah. Well, on the topic of detection, I think since this blog post went up, knowing that file shares are not a required, but a common component of a ransomware attack. So we've even added that to Nutanix files as well. So the files as a file server gets smarter and can alert you to say, hey, I'm seeing traffic written to me that looks to be encrypted ransomware from that user on that workstation, or that quote user on that workstation over there, so that you can learn about it faster, right? So try to put all of the tripwires out there you can, right? Look for bad logons in the log files, get alerted for logon failures, let your file servers with Nutanix files alert you when the data being written is encrypted, let your backups with the right tools alert you when your daily change rate spikes, usually due to encryption of the backup sets as well.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, early detection is the best thing that you can have, because, the longer, even if you have everything else right, even if you have all the backups that you can pull from, all the snapshots you can pull from, if you can detect it early, that just decreases the amount of work, and it decreases the amount of time that you have to go through, or the company has to go through, when you have a security incident. And the faster you can detect this thing and actually start taking care of what actually happened and start mitigating it, the better it is for you and everybody else that is, depending on that data that you serve and protect.
So guys, the third section of the law here talks about recovery, which Harvey was just alluding to, the fact that the sooner you can figure out you got a problem, the better. Rapid recovering using native snapshots. I mean, that used to be things that we paid a lot of money for third-party tools. Now Nutanix has it 10 times better than those third-party tools ever had it. Excellent platform or performance of the Nutanix Mine platform. It sounds like we need to have more conversations with our customers around Nutanix Mine, right, Harvey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely a topic that comes up. We've had a few customers actually go down that road and, start modernizing the way that they handle their backups with Nutanix Mine. And it has definitely been a good way to go, and definitely helpful being able to have something that is not only something you're used to seeing, because, you're already working with production Nutanix in most cases. When you start working with Nutanix Mine, it's something you already basically know how to use at that point. You know the interface. And you're able to basically use the feature sets that are shared across the devices, which I would argue is pretty huge. To your point, not having to go through and learn another third-party tool and the way that it, looks at files and protects files. You already got the knowledge. You can just bring it in, set it up, and actually start using it much faster.
Yeah, mine's powered by objects. Our Nutanix Objects offering, which is on-prem S3 storage. S3 is fundamentally a web technology, right? It's an HTTP conversation to put and then retrieve data out there. So it really lets your on-prem backups get very, very cloudy, right? So, whatever your backup application is, right? Whether it's Rubrik or Veeam or Commvault or Haiku, those things write to objects the same way they would write to public cloud storage as well. We just have on-prem, accessibility, on-prem speed, better economics, right? Then public cloud, because you get to own it and manage it. So better price per gig. And of course, with the S3 conversation protocol, right, for how that data gets written, that's where all the worm goodness comes in as well.
Well, and Jirah, that takes us into the last section where it talks about the partnerships Nutanix has, where it takes the magic of Nutanix, the magic of AOS, Acropolis operating system, and then applies a third-party partner like Haiku or Veeam, so that a lot of what we talked about here can just blend together and provide the best of both worlds approach. Any thoughts on either one of these products and how they enable and round out the Nutanix story?
No, we're fans of both, right? So mine specifically is sort of that full packaged offering, right? Put a bow on it. It comes out of the box running whatever, backup vendor you've selected there for the tooling, Haiku or Veeam. And the dashboard's all integrated for management. And then Objects itself as a storage target can also support even other sort of unbundled backup products as well. We can talk to Rubrik, talk to Commvault, talk to lots of other stuff. So at that point, it becomes generic S3 storage. I'm blanking here. End of the day. So really, we can meet customers wherever they're at. If they want, the architected, backup storage and backup application in one product, that's a Mine cluster. If they're like, no, I like my product, just give me the storage. That can be Objects. So whichever one, choose your own adventure there.
Yeah, that was funny. I was thinking of you like a NASCAR driver after a big hard race, trying to get all the vendor names out and just blanking after you got past 4 or 5. That was awesome. All right. Well, guys, thanks for doing this on a Monday/Friday for me. I'm going to wrap things up here in a second and get out the door because my wife's already calling and texting me wanting to know when I'm going to be home.
Oh, of course.
Start packing the bags. But I appreciate you guys jumping on. And look, I mean, this idea that we're going to ever outfort or outflank the bad guys, it's not going to happen. We can just do the best we can and use products like Nutanix Mine, and some of the third-party products we mentioned at the end there, and best practices to try to do the best we can. That's the only thing we can really do.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, that you'll have your victories in the meantime, but this will be ongoing. This will not be something that goes away.
It's kind of like the thing with the bear, right? You don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun the other guys and let them be the ones the bear attacks.
Believe it. You better believe.
In this case, the other guy is your users?
No.
Maybe.
Just the other fodder that the bear is chasing.
Let them go attack the other guys. You make it easy.
That's right.
It wouldn't be a tech podcast without imperfect analogies.
Yeah. We got plenty of those. Well, gentlemen, thank you for the time, and we'll do it again next week when I get back.
Yeah. Enjoy your vacation.